Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Eden Maybon from lightcycleastrology.com, and today we are taking a look at the astrology for the new moon that is coming up in the sign of Virgo on August the 26th. If you're new to the channel, please like, share, and subscribe because I'm really trying to grow the channel and bring Hellenistic or classical astrology to people out there in the world. So today we're taking a look at the new moon in Virgo. This is happening on August 26th, and let me go ahead and share screen here. I'll pull up the real-time clock that I have set for August the 26th at 5:32 p.m. Now, this is going to be the local time where I am in Hawaii, so you'll want to disregard these house divisions because this is dependent on where the sky is rising at the time that you are going to experience this new moon in Virgo. But it's going to happen on August the 26th, pretty late for if you're in certain parts of the world. This might even be past midnight, so it might technically be August the 27th. But let me just go ahead and get the circle annotation going. We can see the new moon in Virgo right here. You can see the moon has just crossed into Virgo. So this new moon is happening right on the cusp of Virgo. The moon is at 1 degree and 36 minutes here, and the sun is at 3 degrees and 52 minutes. Now, the reason that I have set this time where it's not exactly like both the moon and the sun aren't on that 3rd degree of Virgo is because there is really something quite cool about this new moon. It involves the planet Venus back here in Leo, who is traveling towards Virgo, day by day. You can see Venus is at 18 degrees and 51 minutes, and the sun is at 3 degrees and 52 minutes. Now, if you work out the math, Venus is nearly this exact 15-degree separation behind the sun. So why is that important? Well, in ancient astrology, whenever a planet got within this 15-degree range of either before the sun or after the sun's light would begin to be too powerful in order to see that planet in the sky. So if you go out and you try to see Venus as the morning star, past August 26th, there will be too much light flooding the sky right before sunrise, and Venus is light, and she's normally a very bright planet. In fact, she is the 3rd brightest thing in the sky astronomically, but once she gets too close to the sun, her light is not as powerful as all of the lumens that come off of the sun. And in ancient astrology, this signified that a planet was essentially entering the underworld. Its light was dying, or its light was losing power. So we are entering this period where Venus will go through a debilitation by different steps along the way this month. So this is a really important thing that is happening this month. It is not the only important thing, but I would say it's definitely tied with the most important aspect that is going to happen this month. Now, just as an aside for the astrology of September, sometimes we get these months where there is this chaotic formation of aspects between all kinds of planets. There's squares, there's just everything is happening all at once, and it feels like a chaotic whirlwind of interpretation. This month is not like that. This month is really centered on a few different culmination of aspects that are coming together in the sky, and everything else seems to be getting in on that signification, relating to it, being in the domiciles that the aspects are ruling, so to speak. I'll get into this more during the month, but essentially this month is not that kind of chaotic astrology month. This is one of those months where there are a few really key themes, and everything is supporting and working to build those themes up to like a crescendo. And then those themes will begin to dissipate and move towards new themes for the astrology of the month after this month. So that is sort of a little bit of a synopsis, but this is a very prophetic moment here with Venus entering the the under the beams status that was said in ancient astrology as the term for this 15-degree range. So Venus's light is starting to fail now at this time, and this is happening right as there is a new moon. Why is this really, really significant? Because in ancient astrology, Venus was said to be depressed or fallen in the sign of Virgo. So this is the entrance into that theme, you could say. Venus losing her own power, even though she isn't in Virgo yet, she's on her way to Virgo. So Venusian things are being indicated to be moving towards some transformational period of time. What are Venusian things? Well, they can be relationships. They can be how we find creativity. They can be even children. They can be anything from love to aesthetics, pleasurable things, romance, sexuality, everything that we find beautiful, everything that we think is beautiful about us, everything that we desire in this aesthetic, beautiful, or lustful way. This is the Venusian archetype. So all of these types of things that fit into this Venusian archetype are starting to enter a period where they're going to go through a transformation. And the new moon here is going to represent the beginning of that theme or cycle this month that is really prominent. So now just within itself, let's just talk about the new moon itself. The new moon in Virgo, well, each month we get a new moon in that particular sign, and each sign has a little bit of this natural return to whatever it is that that sign is about. So we get basically 12 themes because there are 12 signs. So every month of the year, we begin some kind of new process. There's some kind of new seed that is going to sprout. And for this short month period, that theme is going to kind of play out. And then, it's going to, just like the moon, it waxes and waxes and waxes. It gets full, and then it starts to diminish and diminish and diminish. And then there's a new moon in the next sign ahead. So that is the regular monthly natural cycle that we go through. There seems to be, because of the 12 signs, 12 basic cycles that we return to one time a year. In Leo, the cycle was kind of coming back to some central purpose or vision for meaning in your life and bringing inspiration to come back to some higher eternal truth that is represented by the sun's central role as our, central purpose. This month, we're moving into Virgo, a sign that has to do with the mixing of the summer season and the fall season. Virgo is said to be double-bodied, and that is because we get these days where the season is transforming from summer into fall at the end of the season. There are 3 months in a season. There are 4 seasons. That's where we get the 12 signs. And so each season is comprised of those 3 different subsections or sub-seasons, as I sometimes think of them. The first part of going into a season is the turning or great hinge into a new season. The middle section, where the sun has been in Leo, is that part of the season that is very stable. It's very just that season. It's not turning into it. It's not turning out of it. It's right in the middle. And now the new moon is moving into Virgo, and this is the last part of that season. But this sign represents a time of year that is going to slowly transition the season to the next season. It prepares us for the next season. And in fact, the word preparation is quite a Virgoian word, is it not? So we are talking about a new cycle, a new seed, something that is natural, that happens every time of the year, that starts us off on a cycle of preparedness, you could say. And there's an intuitive feeling that we need to sort of let go of Leo types of things, which could be things like expressing ourselves and being the center and finding these higher truths. That is all very, very necessary. But now we need to transmute that into something that is leading us more towards the cooperation of Libra, where the sun reaches the sign of its fall. And Librans can often be about, I'm not the center of attention. I'm thinking about the conscientious, situations that other people are going through. So there has to be this transition from this more central type of purpose to the Libran, let's all work together and find some kind of harmonious balance so that we can make it through the winter, because now the sun has fallen and we're in fall. Virgo is the intellectual earth sign that is the temple of Mercury, who is a very intellectual, discerning, crafty magician that is skilled at going into the underworld of the fall. So Mercury leads us into the underworld, where we have to go from that central Leo kind of self-importance to the more shared, mature fall time kind of a concept or notions of including everybody. And that's why it's ruled by Venus. So you can see that this to gap from Leo to Libra, you can see that there has to be this transition. So this new seed is all about that. This new moon representing a new seed is all about going into this transition. So we could see things like having a sense crop up in us very naturally that has something to do with, what are we going to prepare for? What is it that we need to knuckle down and really get serious about in terms of having a premonition about the future? What premonitions of the future are we getting right now? Venus here is essentially entering this phase at the same time, by way of sort of going into the underworld. So this is a natural cycle where we start to see that things of this self-beauty or this self-attractiveness, it has to shift to this Libran sense of more like the general beauty or the general aesthetics that we have in Libra. Venus is starting to go through a death and rebirth or transformative phase. And when I say Venus, I don't mean like Venus. I mean the archetypal collection of things that represent Venusian things in our life. Like, again, it could be relationships. It could be how we find ourselves attractive, or that feeling of beauty and aesthetics that we relate to, both as people that could be beautiful ourselves or as being attractive to other people. These are very central things for Venus in Leo. But as she enters under the beams of the sun, those things begin to naturally form kind of a letting go process of that archetype. So these are some of the themes that come back to us naturally at this time of the year. Themes that say, what is it that we need to prepare for? Is there something that maybe we've been neglecting that is really important and doesn't have so much to do with the more pleasurable sides of life, but rather things that are more responsible, or things that are going to set us up for success for the future, things that are really going to bring on a new cycle that is rational and grounded and earthy, like the sign Virgo is. So that is what kind of new cycle is beginning to feel intuitively budding up in our souls at this time. We're in alignment with the natural times of the year. And even if you're on the southern hemisphere, you'll get these archetypal energies sort of coming up as well. But that is the type of theme that you get every year when you get the new moon in the sign of Virgo, is this sort of, let's be a little bit more rational. Let's put a little bit more of the pleasurable, self-seeking types of things aside for now, because there's something that feels like we need to get ready for and be very rational about and be cunning or crafty. And also it's about helping. You notice that one of the Virgo keywords oftentimes is like they're really good at being helping. Well, that's because when Venus moves into Libra, into her domicile, it's all about that community bonding, that community sense of we're getting through the wintertime together, and we're really thinking about the aesthetics of relationship that is not at all self-centered. It's way more conscientious of everybody else's kind of position. So going back to Venus now, Venus moving under the beams is representing the sort of almost like the natural cycle of Venusian things going through that process as it does each year. But because it is so timed to moving under those beams right as the new moon is forming, I think that this year around, that archetype that Venus naturally goes through, where she's being let go of to some degree, or put on the back shelf to some degree, that is going to have much more of a punch this time around. We are going to really see Venusian things crash pretty hard this time around. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is we normally do get Venus going through Virgo somewhere either before or after this time of year. So we do feel this type of theme once a year. But this time around, because of the timing where she's moving under the beams at the exact moment, I think that this transformation of Venus is going to have much more of a guttural punch to it. So that's going to be really cool because we don't usually get that kind of punch. And I'm kind of excited to see how that plays out. Now, there's never any need to worry. Sometimes when I say Venusian things are going to have, go through a very big transformation, people can naturally and, reasonably get kind of concerned about that, because it's like, oh, Venus's relationships, what's going to happen? Am I going to have a breakup or whatever? I wouldn't necessarily jump to those things just yet, because this is a very new cycle. And for however far down the scale gets tipped on one side, it's going to rebalance itself on the other side. So this could be something like Venusian things are going to go through quite the punchful transformation. That's probably not a word. Going to go through quite the powerful transformation, but you're going to get a powerful reward at the end of it. So not to worry if you're concerned about anything Venusian being hard or tough. Yeah, it might be temporarily seemingly, going to be a little bit difficult, but I think the reward is going to be just as great at the end. Actually, I'm fairly confident in that because of what happens at the end of the month with the astrology for September. And I will certainly make a video on that, because that is also going to be the flip side of Venus sort of entering this darker moment here. Other things that are happening at the time of the new moon, we have Mercury. Whenever we look at the new moon, I learned this from my teacher, Achyuta Das, and one thing that he always taught us was that you're going to look at the dispositor of the new moon cycle. That's going to be really, really important. So the dispositor is Mercury here in Libra, and that means that Mercury is the domicile host, or the temple lord of Virgo. Mercury is the temple lord for Virgo and also for Gemini. Virgo is the feminine version of the temple, and Gemini is the masculine form of the temple. So Mercury can go between a feminine temple host and a masculine temple host. This time around, Mercury is in the feminine temple host position. So what kind of condition do we see Mercury in? Because that is the that also represents what kind of new moon cycle this is starting. If the dispositor of the new moon is in good condition, in good dignity, then we see that the new moon is speaking to a cycle ahead that is good. If we see Mercury not in a good position, then we're going to see that the new moon ahead might be kind of not so good. So Mercury in the sign of Libra is not a bad place for Mercury to be. He has no debilitations, or he's not in one of his exaltation signs, or he's not in a depression or anything like that. But Mercury is in aversion, meaning Mercury cannot see. Let me get my arrow going here. Mercury cannot see his neighbor sign. So there's something here that says there's something not quite on the same page. So this could mean that, oh, you're trying to communicate about something, or you're trying to figure out some details for something. Maybe you're feeling this urge to be prepared for something, or to, you know, get back to work doing something that maybe you've neglected and needs to come back to the table now, and you need to start working on it. You just have this sense that like something needs to get done at this moment. And Mercury is not necessarily in a bad place, but Mercury is clearly concerned with Venus. Why? Because Venus is Mercury's dispositor. So this is sort of the chain of command here, right? So Venus rules the sign of Libra and the sign of Taurus. So Venus is essentially giving Mercury things that Mercury wants to do. So Mercury wants to communicate, Mercury wants to come up with ideas, but when Mercury is in the sign of Libra, Mercury is really thinking about communicating to people that are in relationships, or coming up with ideas about relationships or loved ones, or this kind of communicative community type of a conscientiousness or awareness. You can see that it looks to be that Mercury is kind of preoccupied with more relationship things, or with pleasurable things, or with probably Venus going through, moving under the beams. Probably there's some connection here with Venusian things becoming slightly difficult, and now Mercury is preoccupied mentally with trying to understand why. So there's a feeling that we need to prepare, but the rationality is not quite on the same page yet to help get that done. Now that will come later in the month, but that is sort of how we start off the new moon. Another thing that is also in effect, an aspect that is playing out, that is really incredible, is going back to Venus again. We have Venus making an opposition to Saturn. I am really fascinated with this particular opposition because, again, you really see that Venus is starting to become debilitated by degrees. Venus is starting to go through tough times. It's like one little notch on the belt. It's like one more thing piled on her shoulders. It's like first she goes under the beams and it's like, I don't feel so attractive anymore. I'm starting to maybe become a little bit too vain or self-centered, and it's starting to rub people the wrong way. And then it's like she hits Saturn and is like, I'm being limited by how I feel. And it's just debilitated by degrees is sort of my catchphrase for this entire month. Venus, at the time of the new moon, walking into under the beams and making this opposition to Saturn. Wow. Let's just think about this for a second. Saturn is a god that represents death. Venus going under the beams at the time of a new moon is a transformation that Venus goes through. And the first part of that transformation is walking into the underworld, a place of death. Saturn is also the exaltation lord of Venus's temple that is coming ahead. So this is really deeply metaphysical here. So I hope you don't mind if I go a little bit metaphysical on you for a moment, but I am a Scorpio and that is what we like to do. So bear with me, please. Venus rules two signs. Venus rules Taurus here, and Venus rules Libra here. Venus's feminine temple is Taurus, and Venus's masculine temple is Libra. In Taurus, Venus represents the the arc of the sun rising more and more each day, because at this time in the springtime, the light is rising more and more each day, and it culminates at the summer solstice and then begins to start to lower and lower and lower towards the earth each day on its way to fall. So Venus, as the ruler of a place in the springtime that is stabilizing the spring light, and it's moving towards this rising more and more of the light each day. Venus represents this power of life that is just, it's rising and rising and rising. And in life, we can have ambitions. We can have things that we desire very much so. We can have these very strong ideals about this hope for the future. And at that time, Venus represents that kind of archetype. But somehow, Venus has to transform from this very life-filled desire and ambition towards, hey, we are in the wintertime and we've got to survive. So Venus goes from this very beautiful springtime Venus that is just hopeful and happy-go-lucky and very ambitious and wants everything for the world. And when Venus represents the archetype of Libra, Libra has to cooperate with people. Libra has to find the balance, find the harmony, be critically aware of what food is now going to bring you through to the next spring. You know, we have to store food, we have to harvest food. This is the time of year where classically, you know, humans were thinking about, oh my gosh, winter's coming, winter's on our doorstep now, and it's going to get cold and things aren't going to grow. So we have to really find the harmony amongst ourselves to survive. I believe that that was the sort of ancient alignment with this sign at that time of the year, when they saw that the light was no longer greater than the amount of darkness at the time of the fall equinox, which is the home where Venus is also the domicile ruler. So if you follow me through that, you've got the exaltation Lord Saturn being home in this sign of Libra. You've got Venus going under the beams. You've got Venus making that opposition. Everything is triangulating a signification that says Venusian things are going through a necessary transformation from that Taurus Venus to that Libran Venus. So that is what it is. But specifically, this could be like, I get the sense of like, you wake up one day and you go look in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, I've got a wrinkle. And you're like, you know, like, well, I've never seen this wrinkle before. This is kind of like that. This is beauty meets age. This is beauty meets limitation. This is beauty meets the eventual limits of what something can be in value. Like, for instance, if you buy something and it's brand new and it's really beautiful, well, if you just keep it long enough, eventually it's going to not look that way anymore. And at some point, it's just going to look downright old. So sometimes things can be old and beautiful at the same time, like an antique or something like this. So this could be a moment where we do see the beauty in things that are maybe older, or we notice that we are beautiful but looking older. But it also can be that thing where we are starting to run into some kind of limit with a desire and attraction, feeling beautiful ourselves. Or I think more properly, with all of this other stuff that's happening, it could be that Venus is saying, I've got to transform from being this very center of attention kind of enjoying my summer and having wonderful, you know, pleasurable things happening. I feel great. Everybody's feeling great. It's summertime. You know, we're swimming in the river or whatever. Going from that, there's a natural sense that Venus has to move towards a more mature kind of archetype. So those are really the major themes, except for there is one other theme that is beginning to form in the sky. We start to see on the same day as the new moon, this sextile that forms between Mars and Jupiter in the sky. And we can see that Mars is now in the sign of Gemini, a place that is very agile. And the other day, my partner and I were actually watching a documentary. I believe it was on Netflix, and it was like the mind or the soul of cats or something like this. And of course, both of us are big cat lovers. So she said, "Oh my God, we have to watch this," and it was really good. And I started to get this image in my head. I was thinking about Mars in Gemini, and they had this part in the documentary where they were studying, is it true that cats really always land on their feet no matter what position they might, fall off of? And it is true. They have this really elastic spine where they can twist themselves around, and they can, you can throw them up, and no matter how they are, they have the whiskers and the ears, and somehow this tells them what's up and what's down, and they can just twist themselves really quickly and really add, with great agility back to where they're just like, boom, they're going to land on their feet. That is Mars in Gemini. This athletic mental acuity, this trickster meets adventure, this this sort of cynical meets powerful intellectual genius, right? This is a place where Mars has great skill, great agility, great speed, and it's going to do a lot of things. It's going to put a lot of different things in the fire because it's a double-bodied sign. Jupiter is being hosted by Mars. So it's as if Mars wants to do things with ideas at this time, and it wants to do it in Jupiterian fashion. It wants to do them big. It wants to do them zealously so. It wants to create new systems of order. It wants to give itself new exercise regimes, new religions to start researching. It wants to do all of these new cohesive things with some system of order. And so Mars is going to try to definitely initiate new projects or put a lot of projects into the fire all at once with Mars in Gemini. And that's another theme that is just month long, but it is really kicking up and being lit on fire now at the time of the new moon. So those are the basic themes for the new moon that is happening in Virgo. Okay, so that's what I've got for the astrology of the new moon happening in September here. And we have some of the basic themes that are going to play out over the entire month. And I'm going to do my best to hit the aspects as they come along this month and share the archetypes as I'm seeing them. But please, if you have your own interpretations of the aspects, or you get those intuitive feelings about the energies around you or what the aspects are signifying, I would love to read them in the comment section below. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I'll be back real soon with another astrology video for the next coming aspect. Take care, everybody, and have a good weekend. Bye.